Welcome back. We have come to the last part of this lesson. So we are going to go over our concept map just for the last time. So the first thing that we did was to cover ecology, its definition and explanation. We then further went on to the levels of ecological interactions. We spoke about the population, we spoke about the community, and we also spoke about how energy flows from one organism to the other. We spoke about the ecosystem, we spoke about biosphere. So that was the last part of our lesson. Right, and then we were introduced to some new terms for this lesson. So we spoke about ecology, we also spoke about ecosystems, we spoke about population, community, we spoke about interaction, we spoke about biosphere, we further spoke about food chains, food webs, and lastly, we spoke about the environment. Those were the new terms that were introduced during this lesson. Now, these are common errors that we should try by all means to avoid. The first one is confusing the term ecology and ecosystem. Just to be clear, ecology is a study or the study of interactions of organisms with one another and with their physical environment, whereas ecosystem is the environment where the interaction takes place. So here is the environment where living organisms interact with each other and with their physical environment. So it is very easy for you to confuse the two terms. Ecology is the study, whereas ecosystem is the environment where the interaction takes place. Right. Secondly, not being able to differentiate between food web and food chain. I think I spoke about this a lot during the lesson. We said that the food web represents or shows us the transfer of energy from one organism to the next, whereas a food chain shows, let me correct that. A food web speaks about the transfer of energy from one food chain to the next. And the food chain speaks about the transfer of energy from one organism to the next. So those are the two. I also confused them there, so try not to be me. Lastly, confusing the difference between population and community. If you remember well, a population, it is a group of organisms of the same species found in the same place and are able to breed with one another. Whereas a community, it is a variety of populations and they are found in the same area, but in this instance they are interdependent on each other for survival. So this means that they need each other for nutrition, they need each other for other things. So that is actually the difference between population and community. Now moving on to our challenge question for today. If an ecosystem is a specific environment where living organisms interact with one another and with their physical environment, what would happen if a population, for example, of giraffes, if it was removed from the ecosystem and placed in a different area without other populations of other species? So if giraffes were to be removed from an ecosystem and taken to a remote area where they'll just have to exist on their own, what would happen to them? I think that is all for today. I'll see you next time.